Hello and welcome to the Newsome MMA Betting Podcast. I'm your host as always, Newsome, and today we're going to be talking UFC Glendale or UFC on Fox 29, whichever way you prefer to announce it. So the card's pretty awesome from bottom to top, and it'll go down this Saturday night. And I know I've said before that I'll only look to get a guest host on for pay-per-view events, but listen, there are so many great MMA minds and great MMA bettors out there. It'd be criminal, not to hear their voices too. So today I'd like to welcome someone that I consider to be a good friend from over the pond who goes by the alias of Notorious Picks. So how's it going, MP?
Hey guys, what's up? I'm very excited to be here. This is the first time I'm ever breaking down fights on the podcast or any sort of audio, so we shall see how it goes. I'm a little nervous, but my man Newsome knows what's up, so let's see
we'll
how it goes.
we'll be all right, man. Don't worry about that. So just jumping straight into it then, we've got a lot to break down. So as always, me and MP have got our bets together for you guys. We'll be breaking those down in full for you. Anything else that we haven't got bet, we'll just quick fire off at the end, give you a quick pick, a reason why, and why we haven't bet it. So jumping straight into the first fight, and it's your bet, man. So I'm going to let you open up with it. We've got the main event of the evening, which is Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje. So yeah, tell me about your bet, man.
Yeah, man, I'm a big fan of both guys. As soon as the odds dropped, I was very interested in seeing Gaethje at plus money. I believe that he's always a good dog. However, that's not what I took right away. I took fight not going a distance. It's really hard for me to see this fight going 5 rounds, to be honest. Even if it was 3 rounds, it was kind of tough to see it going the distance, but 5 rounds, it's a long time. So I think one of the guys will get finished. I slightly leaned Gaethje's way, and I'm gonna explain why in a second. Give me a quick thought on that, Newsom.
Yeah, I agree, man. I don't see it going the distance, and I think if you are betting a side on this, I've already seen a couple of bettors do it as well. So I do believe if you are going to bet a side on this, you might as well just hit inside the distance. I know we've had a few fights lately that we've all been pretty shocked about it actually going to the judges' scorecards, such as last weekend with Abib and Ayakinta, and also Ngannou and Miocic as well. Two fights that everybody was really surprised about, but it's sort of if you run those two fights back that I've just mentioned, 5 or 10 times, I can't see it going the distance to too
Hmm.
many more times than that time. So you never know, but yeah, I agree. I don't think this fight's gonna go the distance. So talk to me about your bet.
Yeah, I agree here. Yeah, I was very surprised that Habib and Alec Quinta went to this distance. To be honest, I believe that Al very impressed me a lot. Honestly, I didn't think he's gonna be able to last 5 rounds with the beast, and he was able to. And we've learned a lot, I believe, about Al in that fight, taking a fight on what 24 hour notice or so. It's pretty crazy to see that, and but with this one, honestly, Dustin Poirier, let's start with him. I've been a fan of his for a long time. Honestly, one of my favorite fights ever was his fight against Korean Zombie. If you guys haven't seen that fight, I highly recommend rewatching it. It was one of the best fights of 2012. And really, ever since then, I've been following him very closely. And if we look at his record, he's only had 3 decisions since 2012, and all of those decisions were 3 rounders. One was against Eric Koch, one was against Joe Duffy, and one against Jim Miller. Let's start with Jim Miller fight. If I believe Dustin made that fight a little harder than it should have been for him. I think sometimes that tendency comes with Dustin's fights. He could really finish a guy within a few minutes, like he did to Yancy or Fajea, or he can make it tough on himself. He has that dog in him. He loves to fight, he loves to throw down, and Justin is a willing opponent for that. And if we're going back to the Miller fight, I believe if Justin finds that leg kick early and hurts Dustin's leg, it'd be a long night for Dustin. So he can't really afford standing in front of Justin. I think he has to move around a little more. pick his shots because I think he's more technical on the feet. But like Mike Tyson said, once you get punched in the face, your game plan kind of goes away. So
And that's
we shall.
something just to really touch upon as well, because it's one of the reasons why I ultimately am picking Gaethje as well. Not betting it, although I was very close. But I think some fighters have got a tendency to accept a brawl, and Poirier is definitely one of those fighters. You're right, he's technical and he'll go in with a game plan, but when he's fighting a fighter that will get in your face and make you brawl, that
Mhm.
some fighters with the fight IQ, they stay away from that. They stick to the technical side. Some fighters just don't, and Poirier is one of those fighters. Um,
Right.
so I totally agree. I think that
I, yeah, I believe this fight will be similar to DP and Eddie Alvarez fight. You know, you could clearly see that DP had a better technical striking. He was able to hurt Eddie, but then he got overzealous trying to finish him and got hurt himself. You can't be doing that against Justin Gaethje. The guy is not going to be easy to put away. He's going to be there, and I believe Dustin has to, if he hurts him, uh, he has to kind of move a little back and pick his shots better. But we'll see if he's able to do that. I I think that we might see a similar fight to Eddie Alvarez one. And we just saw Eddie Alvarez fight Justin Gaethje. What a war that was. Obviously didn't go to judges, and Justin always says that he never wants to go to the judges, which kind of goes along with my bet. It is high juice, but I believe it's justified here. So yeah.
so how many units have you got on that, and at what line?
I got 10 units on that, and
Wow.
yeah, I got it early. Um, let me see what the line was. I got negative 375 on that. I believe the odds got worse since then.
Yeah.
I got it on April 2nd, so a little bit over a week ago. But I do like it. I think I honestly I just can't see it going 5 rounds. It's very tough. You know, um, and also like in the past when Dustin was getting outstruck, like in Joe Duffy fight, he took it to the ground and was able to control Joe on the ground. But I don't think he's going to be able to do that to Justin. Justin is a very good wrestler, so I see the fight being on the feet pretty much the whole time it lasts. So, and if I had to guess, I believe there will be a finish around the second round. And I've also actually just looked on my 5 dimes account, and I found that I did bet Justin Gaethje inside the distance. I have a unit on him at plus 157. So
That's a good
there's
line,
one
man.
more. Yeah.
Because I think it's come down to about plus 140 now. But I agree, and I was really close to betting this fight myself. Basically, just a quick run over of what I think is going to go down. I think, like I've already said, Poirier is going to come out. He's going to be technical, but then as soon as Gaethje gets in his face and starts throwing down, it's going to entice Dustin into the brawl. I think he'll accept the brawl. Um, I think he's got the hardest shots, but it's really, we've seen it's really tough to put Gaethje away. Ultimately, and this is the only reason I think that Gaethje is going to win the fight, is I think it's going to come down to the leg kicks. I think he's just going to absolutely hammer Dustin's leg kicks. And listen, like, go back and watch Gaethje and Alvarez, because Alvarez wears them leg kicks like a warrior, and I just do not think Poirier can wear the leg kicks like Alvarez can. I think any lesser man than Alvarez will have dropped way before then. I'm not saying Dustin's a lesser man, but or a lesser fighter, but what I am saying is I think that if you swap Alvarez for Dustin in that fight, and Dustin takes all those leg kicks that Alvarez taken, I'm just not sure that it's still been standing. However, I think Poirier's path to victory here should be trying to take him down, trying to take Gaethje down. I know he's a D1 wrestler. That'll come with defensive wrestling as well. But I just, after watching the Poirier and Jim Miller fight, and watching Poirier, start rushing for takedowns because his legs started hurting that badly, I just think to myself, if we replace Miller and put Gaethje in there, what is his legs going to look like at that point. So, but having said that, Poirier could knock him out as well. It's one of these fights where, again, I was itching to bet it and itching to bet it because I wanted that plus money on Gaethje. But I think
Hmm.
the sensible thing from my point of view anyway is for me to just sit back and just enjoy it for what it is. Hopefully, I've already cashed on the night before that fight starts. So that'll make it a little bit sweeter. But yeah, pass from me. But my pick is Justin Gaethje. So moving on to the next one, we've got in the co-main event Israel Adesanya against Marvin Vettori. So again, this is your bet, man. So talk to me.
Um, One correction. I believe the co-main event is the Condit fight.
Oh
Isn't
yeah, sorry, my mistake. Yeah, my mistake.
so
It's
we
it
can
was set on it was set on Wikipedia as the second fight, so no problem. Right, yeah. So it's your bet, man.
if we're talking about Israel against Vittori, I started studying that fight about 2 weeks ago because I got bored. I got done taping 223 and we had a 3 week break, so I started early on that. I initially leaned Israel's way, but after rewatching his fight with Wilkinson, I thought that he made it way too close, for my liking. I believe Wilkinson is a bit of a jobber, to be honest, and Vittori is much better. I also believe that Israel only was 183 for that fight, so he might be a little undersized for the weight class, and Vittori is a big boy. Um, However, there's one issue with Vittori that I see is his cardio. Um, he kind of tends to slow down um, around the second round. It's not a great look, but I believe he has a clear path to victory here. He has to close the distance. He has to take down Israel and just put on the clinic on the ground. I think he's very good on the ground. I don't think Israel is the same level. However, I did not like hearing Vittori's pre-fight interview. He's saying that Israel has some holes in his stand-up and he wants to exploit those. I don't think that's his. I don't think that's a smart thing to do here. I think Israel is a very good striker. He picks his shots very well. He mixes up the body and head. So I don't want to see that. I want him to close the distance and take it down. But the price, I believe the odds are a little bit off here. I was very surprised. I thought that the fight would be close to pick 'em in my eyes because I see clear paths to victory for both guys here. And Israel does have big holes in his ground game, and that's what Vettori has to do. He has to take it to the ground, and I think he can control him there and maybe submit him. So that's my thought. And with that being said, I have 1.5 units on Marvin Vettori at plus 255. I was able to get that line on 5 dimes. It was on the 9th of April. I believe that's yesterday. Yep. I was still in New York. I was riding on an Uber, and the line started to drop, and I was like, wow, this line I believe is way off. So I had to take the shot, and I like it. I might also hedge on Israel by KO when it gets closer to the fight because I do see that scenario as well, and I might get plus money on that too. So I kind of like to cover angles. So that's my thought.
Cool. Yeah, weirdly I tend to agree with you as well. I think that Adesanya comes from a kickboxing background. He's got great stand-up, flashy. He comes with power as well. But you touched upon it as well. I think he might be a little small for the division, and Vettori's definitely not small for the division. So I always tend to favour someone that's got takedowns and a ground game. I would love to bet Vettori in this spot because I still think that the odds are off. I know you've got a great line at plus 250. He's still around the plus 200 mark. I still think that there's value in that, but it's just a trust factor for me because he has, even though he's got these takedowns and a really really good submission game as well, a really underrated submission game. He sort of fell in love with his striking a little bit, and I'm just finding it right now a little bit hard to trust somebody. Like for example, when Colby Covington steps in a cage, that dude's not going to strike with anybody because that's not what he's about. He's going to take somebody down. I wanted that sort of clarification from Vettori, but right now I just can't trust him. So I do think he wins the fight. I do have issues about his cardio. I think he might struggle in the third round if he can't get Adesanya out. But ultimately, I think he's going to get a decision. We saw Rob Wilkinson take Adesanya down quite a few times. He did keep on popping back up, but Rob Wilkinson's not a great takedown artist or a great grappler, so there's that side to it as well. And he did then eventually gas, which made it almost impossible to take Israel down at that point. But I think Vettori has got more in the gas tank. I think he is a little bit more powerful. His takedowns are a little better. His grappling is definitely a lot better than Wilkinson's. So I can see him having success in large periods of the fight. So yeah, it's a pass from me from a betting perspective. But yeah, my pick is Marvin Vettori to win by a decision. So,
yeah, just to add a little bit to that,
yep.
just comparing, I watched all four Vittori's fight in the UFC. One was against ACJ, who's also fighting on this card, so it was kind of 2 for 1, doing tape on that one. And his first two fights, every time there was a striking exchange, I was cringing a bit. He was leaving himself open for counters, but I have seen improvements in his stand-up against Vitor Miranda, who's a pretty good striker. But once again, against Omari Akhmedov, he was getting hit with a lot of bombs. And Omari Akhmedov is not a creative striker like Israel. He kind of just wings shots. He likes overhands and hooks. And Israel is much more technical. So there's a bit of worry here. And Vettori, he doesn't have the best fight IQ, So I'm hoping that what he said pre-fight, he's mostly like playing games. He's not actually going to go there and strike with Israel, because that's not the best path for victory here. But yeah, I like the odds. I think there's good value here, and I had to take it.
Cool. So moving on to the next one, we've got my first full breakdown. So we've got Michelle Waterson versus Courtney Casey. Now, for me, I was under some sort of misconception about what Michelle Waterson's about. It's the first time I think I've actually bet one of her fights, so it's the first time where I've actually sat down and, from an analytic point of view, and broke her fights down. And to be honest with you, I was really shocked in what I saw. She's not the fighter that I thought she was. I sort of had the thoughts that she was quite technical on the feet, bounced in and out of range, putting strikes and combinations together, and it's really not that at all. She hasn't really got a jab. She hasn't really got a cross. She doesn't put combinations together. She doesn't mix in any sort of karate kicks inside of the combination start or finish. She doesn't really work too much inside the clinch. When she gets in the clinch, the first thing she does is waste no time to try and get the head and arm throw, which is really common in women's MMA. Seems to be quite successful. But then when she does hit the mat with the head and arm throw, if she's fighting somebody that's got even a little bit of grappling experience, or someone that is quite well tuned on the ground, she tends to put herself in bad situations, and that's exactly what Courtney Casey is. I mean, she's not a great fighter, and I always say, the fighter that you bet on doesn't have to be great. They only have to be better than their opponent, and it's a case of this fight as well, because, like I said, Casey's not great, but she's got a huge height advantage over Waterson. She's got a huge reach advantage over Waterson. That'll come with a strength advantage as well. When just let if you go back and look at most of Waterson's wins, they tend to come from the head and arm throw, and then scrambles on the ground, and then pulling off a submission, which is great. But for a start, I don't even think she's going to be able to comfortably get her arm around Casey's head unless she pulls her down. But then Casey's got the strength advantage over there as well. It's a really tough spot for Waterson, and all she seems to bring to the table on the feet, she calls herself the karate hottie, which indicates that she's got some crazy good karate game, like, for example, someone like Wonderboy maybe, that you would associate that sort of style with. And it's not that at all. She leads with a front side kick to the thigh, and that seems to be, as daft as it sounds, all that she really brings to the table. And I think she's going to have to get inside to Casey to hit her, or to get a hold of her, or to do anything to her. And I just think every time that she comes in to close the distance with Casey, I think she's going to get cracked. because Casey's got really quick and accurate counter punching. It's not like crazy good, but it's enough. And she throws it in bunches. It's not just one shot and then move away, angle off, another shot, move away, angle off, just one shot at a time, because that won't work and that will never look good in the judge's eyes. It's combinations, and again, not great combinations, but punches and bunches. It's enough to keep someone like Waterson, who's going to be having to constantly close the distance, out of reach. And I think if hypothetically, if Waterson does get the head and arm throw and does put her on the mat, we've seen Casey in positions on the mat where she's rolling her left or right leg over, to ready to pop her head out and take the back or take mount, and then start working her own ground game on top. I'm not sure how much success she would have grappling Waterson, but I don't think it gets there anyway. Ultimately, like I say, I think what's going to happen is Waterson's going to come out, she's going to be throwing these kicks to the thigh, it's going to be really ineffective, she's going to have to close the distance at some point. I think Casey's going to pick at her at range, and like I say, every time she comes in, I think she's just going to get hit with these blasts of counters and just win a really ugly, boring decision. But that's ultimately how I think it's going to go. I don't need an exciting fight to for me to win my money. If I'm winning my money, then it's a great fight in my eyes. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be anything spectacular, and I don't think Casey's anything spectacular. But she's better than Waterson, and it's going to be a tough fight for Waterson for sure. And I think you've got similar thoughts as well. So you run over your thoughts, man.
Yep. So one of the things that I noticed with Michelle Waterson, she's extremely hittable. She doesn't move her head well. She against Tisha Torres, it was very apparent. She would throw 1-2 punches, but then she wouldn't move out of the way. And Torres was able to close the distance, land 3-4 punches, and really outbully her. And I believe that a strength advantage in women's divisions is very important. I believe it might be even more important than the men's, honestly. And sometimes it could win you a fight, sometimes it could not. Like for example, last weekend we saw that, probably Felice Herrick, we all thought that she's going to be able, well, not all of us thought, but a lot of people thought that she would be able to outbully Carolina and take it to the ground and maybe submit her. But there, you could see that Felice was a bit too stiff on the feet, So I I don't think that Cortney is stiff. I believe Cortney is going to be able to not only outbully Michelle, but she's going to be able to outstrike her. I think she has better combinations. I believe her boxing is better. Like you said, that Michelle, she doesn't really have great striking. I know her nickname is Karate Hottie, but really, I don't really see her great karate with her. Also, I've noticed a big hole in her game as well. She kind of ducks her head to the left, and that's how Rose Namajunas was able to catch her with a head kick and put her down and then submitted her. She didn't really fix that mistake in her game. I saw the same tendency against Tisha Torres in her last fight. So if Courtney Casey can spot that and maybe throw a few head kicks, I believe she'll be able to land that. But I think that Courtney is going to just stay on the outside. She has like 4 or 5 inch reach advantage, and her boxing is going to make the difference here.
Just one point that I missed off as well. The thing that struck out to me before I started watching tape, I always do a bit of statistical research beforehand, and I noticed that Courtney Casey had like a 25% takedown defense, which instantly worried me, especially when Waterson, has a lot of wins by taking people down. But I'm not sure how many of those takedowns are also the head and arm throws. Some could be, standard wrestling takedowns and trips and things like that. It's going to be a whole mixture of things if she's getting taken down a lot. But Waterson doesn't offer, from what I've seen, any other type of takedown apart from the head and arm throw. And like, there's going to be 4 or 5 inch difference in height. So I mean, can you imagine reaching up to get to get your arm around the back of someone's head when they're 4 or 5 inches tall? And it's going to be pretty tough. Like I say, you're going to have needed them to bend down a little, and even if that is the case and she gets to bend down, she quickly wraps the arm around the neck. Cortney Casey will probably just have to lift herself up, and she'll have that strength advantage. So, I'm really confident in Cortney Casey in this fight, and like I say, I'm pretty surprised with what I saw of Michelle Waterson, because I think she's definitely overrated, and I think she might have been overhyped by some as well. So, my bet, by the way, is 2 units on Cortney Casey, and I got that at -105.
Okay, and one more thing I wanted to add. If you rewatched Tisha Torres fight with Michelle Waterson, the 2 takedowns that Michelle was able to get was mostly due to Tisha overextending and kind of overreaching and moving in too quick, and that's how Michelle was able to take her down. So to me, it's more like a reactive takedown. I don't think that Casey overextends like that. I didn't see that in her fights. I think she's content kind of sitting on her punches, striking from distance, and I think that's gonna make a huge difference here. She's also very good at striking, moving backwards. She showed that against Felice Herrig. And again, in that Felice Herrig fight, she did get taken down, but Felice really worked for that takedown. She got, I believe, double underhooks, and she mostly used strength, honestly. And I don't think that Michelle Waterson is going to be able to do the same kind of takedown on Cortney Casey. And after she got taken down, she was able to reverse Felice with a Kimura attempt, and she got on top. And
yeah, I was about to say she swept her.
Yeah, that was very impressive to me. She's also a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, and Michelle, I believe, is a purple belt. I think there's levels to this game. There's a big difference between purple and brown belt. And I don't think that Michelle's going to be able to control her on the ground if she does get a takedown, and I honestly don't think she will get a takedown. So I believe Cortney can win a 30-27 here. One cool fact that I kind of found was Cortney Casey, 3 out of her 4 losses in the UFC were against hometown fighters. So she fought Johan Calderwood in Scotland, and on a 10-day notice. So she flew all the way to Scotland, and she was visibly gassed after, I believe, first or second round. So, and Johan Calderwood was able to beat her. Then the next fight, she flies to Korea, loses to Seo Hee Ham. And then another loss, she lost to Claudia Gadelha in Brazil. And Claudia Gadelha, she is a beast. She is an elite athlete. So, and now she's fighting at home in Arizona. I think that's a good spot for her. I think she is only improving. That's her second full camp with MMA Lab. I believe that team is very good. They can put a good game plan together, and I think she will be able to execute it.
So what's your bet then, man?
I have 1 unit on Cortney Casey at +110.
Oh, nice line.
Yeah, the line, I think she opened at -120, so I waited a bit, and within like 20-30 minutes, she was an underdog, so I took her there, and I believe she's a favorite now, right?
Yeah, I think she's at like -130 or something now. So, she's just outside of a pick'em. I wouldn't say a completely clear favorite, but yeah, certainly a favorite. So, moving on to the next fight then. It's your bet again. You're a busy man this card, MP. We've got Tim Boetsch against Shoeface Antonio Carlos Jr. So, who have you bet?
So initially when I saw this matchup, I really, really liked Fight Night going a distance, but obviously those odds are not out there yet. So
they dropped today, man.
They did?
Yeah,
okay.
I think the Fight Not to Go the Distance dropped at -150. I think it budged straight up to 180. I'm not sure where it's at now, but yeah, they're out.
Okay, so yeah, I think Tim Boetsch has definitely power in his hands. He's got good head movement. He's got good boxing. I think he might be able to hurt ACJ here, and but I'm not gonna say that I don't see a path for victory for ACJ. I think if he takes it to the ground, He's a much better jiu-jitsu practitioner, and he might be able to submit Tim Boetsch. That's why I was mostly interested in the prop bet, but seeing Tim Boetsch at plus 200, I just decided to take a shot on him. I have a 1 unit at plus 205. I think the odds are a little bit better now, but I'm okay with that price. I see the fight a little closer than the odds suggest.
Well, for me, I went into tape in the hope of betting Shoeface. This is before I saw the odds. I definitely wouldn't have bet it at this price now. But ultimately, I came out of tape just passing, and I was interested in the fight. Doesn't go the distance, but I've locked in my bets now. I'm happy with what I've got, the strategy that I'm employing for this card. So it really takes something absolutely spectacular for me to add any other bets. But yeah, originally I thought Shoeface would. I would see a clear path to victory for him, and although it's a path to victory, it's certainly not clear. And the reasons why for me is I just feel that Boetsch is pretty tough to take down, and for a big guy, he's got good scrambles as well. Now the difference is when you flatten him out on his back, well, not flatten him out, but when he's solidly on his back, then that's different. You can work up the proverbial pyramid in the grappling. You can transition on him, you can pull off subs and stuff like that. Like when he's finally on his back, it's quite simple if you've got the BJJ skills, which Shoeface definitely has. But until you get to that point, it's tough. And to actually, Antonio Carlos Jr.'s takedowns aren't your standard wrestling takedowns, your doubles or your singles. They're closing the distance, clinching up, trips, things like that, and it's that all plays into Boetsch's game plan and his strengths in his MMA game as well, because he's got the power short, from short range or from full boxing range. He can knock you out. He's got good elbows inside the clinch. He's also big and strong, so he can get that whizzer and turn you, so you've got your back against the cage as well. He can put you in some horrible positions when you close distance. So I just feel that where Shoeface needs to get the fight, he has to go through Boetsch's strengths in his game, and I don't like that. And like I said last week, it's similar with, I know the fight didn't happen, but with Ray Borg and Brandon Moreno, I really like Borg in that fight, but I didn't want to bet him because he has to win the fight. He has to beat Moreno at what he does best, and I think we have a similar sort of scenario here. So that's the reason I haven't bet it. Ultimately, my pick is going to be Shoeface, because when you look at Jacare when he fought Boetsch, I know he's a different animal, but Boetsch really did look like a fish out of water when he finally had his back on the mat. I think at some point over 3 rounds, Shoeface will probably put him on his back, avoid the knockout shot, and I think he'll get that submission at some point in this fight.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that really worried me about Shoeface is that that loss against Dan Kelly, by TKO, it's not a great look. Dan Kelly is, I don't know. I mean, Dan Kelly is what he is. I don't think he's a great fighter. I think he's
quit,
game.
Man. He quit in that fight.
See, that's what I don't like. That's why I was really eyeing that prop bet, because if you look at both guys' records, since 2014, Shoeface only has 1 decision against Vettori. And both guys, are grapplers. I mean, you could see how that went to a distance, and Boetsch, he only has 1 decision, and the last one was in 2013 against CB Dalloway. Ever since then, he's either knocking guys out or he gets submitted or TKO'd himself, So I think that was, I think that's the best read that I have on this, and I might still bet it. I might have to look at the over/under when it drops. If it's a 2.5, I'll be very tempted. If it's 1.5, then I might lay off of that. So we shall see. But I do like Boetsch at plus 205. I think there's value there.
Cool. So moving into the next fight, again, one of your bets. So you can start with this. We've got Wilson Reis against John Moraga. So who have you got, man?
Yeah, I like Moraga here. I I was a bit surprised seeing him as underdog. And I immediately had to put a unit on him there. I think Wilson Hayes, yeah, his last 2 losses were against number 1 and number 2 guys, I believe, in the division. But even before that, he was getting outstruck by Sandoval. That's not a good look. I think Moraga is going to be able to piece him up on the feet. Also, guys like flyweights, I believe they decline quicker than other weight classes. I think he's getting a little older. I think he has declined a bit, although, I mean, that Henry Cejudo loss, I can't really put too much stock on that because I think Henry Cejudo is really good. I really do. But even before that, like I said, he was getting outstruck. I think John Moraga is going to be lighter on the feet. He's going to be able to pick his shots. He might even be able to finish Hayes here, and so I like dog money here.
So how many units you got at what price?
I guess I have 2 bets here. I had 1 unit at 205, and then I added 2 more units at plus 110. So yeah, 3 units total. I'm liking it. I have confidence in Moraga. He's also fighting at home, and I do think that there's a trend with underdog hometowners. I believe that if you obviously you can't just take all underdog hometimers, right? But I think this one and Cortney Casey, I think both are great spots, and I think if you do find good underdogs that are fighting at home, you would be profitable long term. And I've seen that trend. I've been paying attention to it, for months. So I like it.
It's an interesting view, man. In regards to what you said with the flyweights declining sooner, I do tend to agree with that because the first thing that tends to go, well, maybe not the first thing, but one of the first things that tends to go in MMA fighters is the speed. And at flyweight you need to have that speed because everyone else is so quick. So I do get that. I am siding the other way though. I've not dug into tape with this. It wasn't a fight that stood out to me that I thought I'd be able to get an edge either way, but I am siding with Wilson Hayes. You mentioned it. His last 2 losses are to the best 2 in the division. I do agree with that. So I don't think you can put too much stock into that. I do think that Moraga gets taken down a little too easily. So I think if Hayes does want to be relentless with those takedown attempts, I think he will have success sooner or later. And then I do think when he's on top, his BJJ game is awesome. So I do think that if Moraga can't scramble and he does have his back flat on the mat, I do think Hayes can work him. But this is all without digging too much into tape. So ultimately, I hope you bet cashes, but I'm going to side with Wilson Hayes, and I think he gets it done by decision.
Yeah, I mean, I can't blame you. I think Wilson Hayes is pretty legit, but I just think that one guy, Moraga, I think he kind of has a resurgence right now. He did lose 3 in a row in 2015, 16, and 17, but 2 of those 3 losses were to Benavidez and Sergio Perez.
Yeah,
I think those are really, really, really good guys. And before that, he lost to John Dodson twice and Demetrius Johnson. I mean, those are, serious competition, So, and the last 2 fights he's won, he beat Ashkan Mkhitaryan and he beat Magomed Bibulatov. I believe he was a huge dog against Bibulatov and was able to knock him out within a minute and a half. Looked great on the feet. And I think he continues that momentum.
Cool, man. Well, like I say, I hope I've got nothing on it. It's just a pick from me. But I hope you bet gashes.
We kind of skipped over Condit and Habwe.
Yeah. We'll quick fire off that at the end, man.
All right. Sounds good.
Are you betting that fight?
To be honest, I kind of do want to fade Carlos Condit. But negative 200 on Habwe, I'm not in love with. The reason being is Habwe is kind of one of those fighters that he's kind of unpredictable at times. He can come in and look like a world beater, and then he can come in and get stopped. And he had a war with Medeiros lost, and I don't know if he was able to fully recover from it. That's why I'm a little hesitant. But Carlos Condit, he's kind of shot, man. He looked very bad against Maya, and he looked really bad in his last fight against Magny, and I know that Cowboy is he's definitely a different stylistic matchup here, but I just don't know how much Carlos Condit has left in the tank, and I'm hoping that the odds will get a little better, and if Cowboy gets to negative 175 range, I might pull the trigger. For now, I'm just kind of staying off of that one. But I think that I think Oliviera will get it done, but I just don't love the price.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll run that after the main bets then, and we'll drop that as a quick fire pick. But yeah, next we've got Krzystof Jotko against Brad Tavares, and again, this is my second of my three bets. It's a bit of a weird one this as well because I nearly didn't watch tape on it because I thought the fight would be that close that I wouldn't see any sort of edge, a little like what I've just said with Wilson Heiss and John Moraga. But I did run the tape. I had a bit of time a couple of nights ago, and I thought, you know what, I'll run the tape because I was a fan of both guys. Yotko sort of fell off a cliff a little bit lately, so just an indication of where I've gone here. I've got 2.5 units on Brad Tavares, a really good -128 line. And I genuinely watched tape, and I was really surprised with what I saw. And I think it's a really good stylistic fight for Brad Tavares. So just starting off with Yotko, I mean, what he brings to the table, he brings speed, movement, angles, kicks, and although Tavares will probably be the slower fighter out of the two, um, he's got great movement himself. He's got good forward pressure to accompany it. Also, when Jotko's throwing the body kicks or the low kicks, Brad Tavares showed in his fight against Elias Theodorou that he's got good counters to those kicks, coming over the top with right hands and putting together quick combinations, just to relieve that pressure and to really make his opponent think, if you're going to be kicking me, you're going to have something back. And I quite like that from him. It's not something that you see from a lot of fighters, to proactively be countering those kicks at all times. And if Jotko does take Tavares or try to take Tavares down, because he has got sporadic takedowns, Jotko, he doesn't come too often, but it's sort of more opportunistic rather than going out looking for it. But Tavares has got a really really underrated takedown defense, and he's got good scrambles as well. And it's worth noting if you watch the tape on Tavares when fighters are trying to get him down, quite a lot of the time he will take you back. He's got a really good back take from the scrambles also. So I have confidence in that side, but then Brad Tavares brings his own sporadic takedowns. He's quite similar in that respect with Jotko, so he will look for opportunistic takedowns as well. But the difference is for me is Jotko doesn't look like he's got great scrambles, and if he has, he didn't display it against when he was getting taken down by David Branch. I know David Branch has got good takedowns as well, but he didn't really show um, any sort of real scrambling. And once he was also on his back against Branch, he really didn't, for the first few seconds he was throwing his legs up, opening his guard, trying to find something or do something, but ultimately he was not doing much at all. And I think if Brad Tavares doesn't have the greatest top control, but I do think he can have some success if he does take it down there. So I'm just trying to cover off all angles with my bets here and just seeing, picking different scenarios in the fight of where it could potentially go and how I would feel about that. So on the ground, I'm actually, it doesn't phase me too much. I don't think Jotko will get Tavares' back flat on the mat. I think Tavares will always look to stand up or scramble out of it or take his back in a scramble. And like I said for Jotko, I like Tavares if he does opt to take him down because he stays flat on his back. Now, I just think that also when you look at Jotko, I don't think his volume and his striking's that high either. He does tend to go through large periods of inactivity, and that's something that I don't like to see from a fighter. And betting someone like Tavares, who does seem to be constantly moving forward and doing something and throwing something, I do like that. And again, that's really favourable for the fighter that I'm betting in this matchup as well. And then lastly, it's coming down to Jotko's base. He's got a really, really wide base. His legs are out there to be kicked. Tavares has got these big tree trunk leg kicks. I think they can definitely wear on them. And I think Jotko's base is really so wide that it'd also be quite tough to start checking those leg kicks as well. I think that he
Yeah.
would really have to. he'd really have to tighten up that base to defend the leg kicks. And I think that overall, every time Jotko comes into range, I think he's just going to get hit by Brad. I think it will be Brad pressuring, but I think it'll be Jotko dictating when he comes in and when he moves out. But like I say, I think every time he comes in, he's going to get hit with something. I think eventually Tavares is going to really put it on him. I think he's going to pick him apart. And don't be entirely surprised if Tavares knocks him out. He's not known for knockouts. He is more of a decision king. But in Jotko's last fight against Hall, he got cracked with a one bomb from Hall. I know Hall hits hard, but it was a one shot that pretty much put him away. Definitely dropped him, nearly knocked him out. So don't be surprised if Tavares does knock him out, but ultimately I think it's going to be a really comfortable decision on the scorecards. So have you got any sort of thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, for sure. As far as I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, against Uriah Hall, I believe Jotko really gassed himself out trying to finish Hall in the first round, and I think he came out really flat in the second and just got cracked and finished. And I haven't done any research for this fight because I I just don't like Jotko. I've been burned by him twice, and I just told myself I got to stay away. I know that some cappers, they like to get their money back on the fighters that lost the money. I just decided to pass, but I do not like that Jotko. He's like the opposite of Brian Ortega. He finds a way to lose fights that he's winning. You know, Whereas Ortega, he might be losing rounds, he might be getting outstruck, and then he finds a way to win. This guy does the opposite. I don't like that, and it definitely goes well with your bet on Brett Tavares. I also believe that Brett Tavares has faced much tougher competition in the octagon. He has some really good wins. He beat Lorenz Larkin, who I think is a very good striker. He beat Nate Marquardt, who might have been off the juice, but still pretty good win there. He beat Elias. Solid wins.
And that's another thing with Elias. I think Elias and Jotko have a similar sort of style of fighting. A lot of people tend to hate on Elias because he's boring and he doesn't really excite anybody. I quite like the guy and I like to bet on him as well. I think he's quite a solid fighter. And Tavares beat him comfortably. Like, it was a unanimous 29-28. I thought it could have been a 30-27. But he beat him comfortably. And I think if Elias, I know MMA math, we can go around in circles and, discuss who will beat who and if this person beats that person. Ultimately, MMA math tends not to work out most of the time. But if Elias fought Jotko, I would definitely be high on Elias to beat Jotko. And this is a guy that's just been dominated by Tavares, so.
Yeah, I think the difference in that potential matchup is the fight IQ. I think Jotko's fight IQ is pretty poor, I'm really not impressed. Like I said, he finds a way to lose. I don't like betting on guys like that, so I definitely like your spot there. And, Brett Tavares, he's got a 3-fight winning streak. I think he's on the roll right now. I do understand the angle of Jotko. He lost 2 in a row. His back is against the wall. He might be dangerous here, but I think you have a good bet here, man. I personally just don't want to bet on Jotko fights, but I like what you're seeing here, and I agree here,
Cool. So next up we've got Gilbert Burns against Dan Moret, or Moret, however you pronounce that. I'm sure you'll be able to correct me because this is someone you train with, right?
Yeah, he splits time with. He's originally from Minnesota. He's been training at MMA Lab for this one. I've seen him with another guy from our gym, John Castaneda. And you see pictures of him and Cortney Casey and all those guys training together. He's been looking great. He's got 2 submission wins in a row. I believe that's not the way he should fight here because Gilbert Burns is really, really good on the ground. He's a world-class BJJ practitioner. Also, Gilbert Burns will have a size advantage. Remember last time I believe he was like 25 pounds over coming into the fight week, and they pulled him off the card. I think Dan Moret, I grappled with him. I'm about 160. I think he's about 175 or so. So definitely Gilbert Burns will have size advantage, but I think Dan's path to victory here is to stay on the feet. I think he might have a striking advantage here. I'm definitely be rooting for my boy, and hopefully he will get it done.
So is this a bet for you then?
I've just put, like a quarter unit, because he's my boy. You gotta put a little bit, and the odds are, he's the biggest underdog. I don't hate it. If I lose on that, I'm not gonna be too upset. I think my other bets will cover that, but I gotta support my boy, and he's fighting, pretty much at home. He's training in Arizona, so it could be a good spot, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if Gilbert Burns wins. He's a really good fighter. I was actually taking him against OAM, and before he got pulled off the card. I don't know if I would take him now, seeing what OAM looked like last weekend, but
Yeah, man.
we shall see how he looks.
Well, for me, from my point of view, I don't really know much about Dan Moret. I mean, I know we've spoken, a little bit about him previously, and you mentioned that he's primarily a grappler. So, uh, yeah, from a pick point of view, I'm not going to spend too much time breaking this down. From a pick point of view, I have to go with Gilbert Burns, vet experience, full camp. Um, his jiu-jitsu is, I think, he's a second degree black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So I think if this fight hits the mat, he's probably going to tap him. And yeah, ultimately that's going to be my pick. I'm sorry, I don't really have any more to say on this. It was definitely going to be, I'm not even going anywhere near this from a betting point of view. Gilbert Burns is something ridiculous, like minus 500, minus 600. There's no way in hell I'm taking that. So yeah, Gilbert Burns by submission is my official pick. So next on the card we've got Dhiego Lima against Yushin Okami. So again, this is another one of your bets.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised seeing Dhiego Lima open as underdog. I was able to get a good price on him. I believe he's got way more left in the tank. I think that Yushin Okami, he's been fighting since 2003 or so. Yes, in his last fight in the UFC, he took a short notice fight against OSP in the division he has no business in being. Honestly, I might have to tape it a little more before I decide putting it on Bet MMA. But I watched the season, the Ultimate Fighter season Redemption with Dhiego Lima, and he looked very good there. He made it to the finals. He lost to what's his name, JT.
Yeah, Jesse Taylor.
JT, and I mean JT was yoked to the gills. He was.
Nah, he wasn't. He wasn't.
Yeah. So I mean, I can't really.
I love JT, man. Don't rip on JT.
Well, he did get popped, so there's that.
Fuck it, I won money on that. I won money on that bet on that fight anyway. I was all over JT on that fight.
I believe I was as well, because he just had a clear path to victory there, and he was able to smother Dhiego Lima on the ground. But I just think that Dhiego Lima is going to be able to stay on the outside, pick his shots. He's got way more left in the gas, in the tank. I mean, and honestly, I've always tried to look for a solid fade on the veteran in every card. It's been working for the last few cards. With Lozon, with Berkman, with Van Saunders. Mike Pyle. It's been, at least one good fade every card, and I think this could be it. Like I said, I might have to tape it a little more just to confirm, but I had to take a little shot on him when the line dropped. I believe let me check what I got him at. But yeah, I think Dhiego Lima. I mean, I think he's gonna be able to show his skills better in this fight. I think he's just going to be way faster. He's going to move around, and I think he's going to be able to maybe even hurt Okami, So I got him at plus 120. Yesterday, I got 1.5 units. Like I said, I have to watch a little bit of tape before I confirm. But, I like to take those shots on my leans, like as soon as the odds drop, if I see dog money, I like to take those shots.
Yeah, so. Sure, and I don't hate it with it being dog money. I think he's moved into the minuses though now. Last time I looked, I think it was a direct split -110 between them both. So I don't hate the plus money, but I am siding with Okami. And this is a fight that I did tape. And again, it's weird how much tape's vital in this game, man. You have to watch tape, and you just get reminded of that every now and again when you see things that you had no idea about that you wouldn't have known if you'd watched tape. And I didn't realize Dhiego Lima was actually that chinny, and that's what he is. He's a very, very chinny fighter. Even it was a couple of fights ago. He was fighting a fighter called Michaud or Michaud, however you pronounce that. It was just he was a wrestler guy, nothing special, not a striker. He dropped him. He was putting it on him in regards to striking. I think that was just before the Tough Redemption. And admittedly, Dhiego Lima did look a lot more improved throughout the Tough Redemption. But I can only go by what I've seen on tape. And when I'm seeing him get dropped by smaller wrestlers, and just overall just not looking that great. And then you see that his four of his losses out of his 6 losses are by knockout or TKO. I sort of can't put my money on that guy. And the other thing that I really really hate about him is when he gets taken down. He accepts the takedown. Okay, that's cool. Some people do accept the takedown, but then he doesn't fucking do anything after. He'll just close guard. He'll stay in guard. He'll not do anything. He'll just wait there and just wait until the time's going down, just losing the round second by second, minute by minute, and it's like I can't put my money on that guy either. So it's like for me, I went into tape thinking, oh yeah, I'll bet for the same reason as you've mentioned about the fade of the vet. I'm totally down, totally on that train, and that's why I watched tape thinking, okay, well Lima's looked better in the Tough Redemption. That was the first tough, the full tough that I've watched. Sorry, not that was the last tough that I'd watched from start to finish. So I was very very aware of his progression through that series, and he looks a lot better. But then, like I say, it's tough to put my money on him, and for that reason, I'm going to side with Okami, because if Okami does decide to go to his wrestling and use get takedowns and take Lima down, I don't believe Lima's going to do anything off his back. I think Okami could just lay there and just pop shot and just
Mm-hmm.
waste time and win a decision. So yeah, that's my pick. Complete pass from me, because I'm also not going to bet the vet either.
Did
I don't think you can bet Okami in this spot. So ultimately a pass, and my pick is Okami by decision.
I have a question. So you said you watched tape on it. So when you say you watched tape, did you watch tape on Okami as well?
Yeah, I watch both sides, and that's the reason why
Did
I can't bet Okami either, because again he doesn't look like the fighter that he used to be. Not even a chance. And again, when you go back to the OSP fight, I know he had no business up there at light heavyweight, but he got completely trolled on, and rightly so. OSP was a much better fighter. I just think from both sides, I can't trust either guy. I can't trust the declining vet, and I can't trust the chinny guy that likes to lay on his back in full guard. You know what I mean? It's just, for me, it's just a tough fight to even trust anybody with my money.
No, I don't blame you at all. And like I said, this is one of the bets that I mentioned today that I need to watch tape before deciding if I put it on Bet MMA. The other ones that I've mentioned will be on it. I watched a lot of tape, so this is just the last one that I have. So yeah, I mean, the next few days I'll spend watching tape on those two guys, and I have to decide. But yeah, we shall see.
Cool. So then the final full breakdown for the podcast is my final bet. So it's Matthew Lopez against Alejandro Perez, and Lopez is a guy that I've been quite high on ever since I watched the Dana White Looking for a Fight episode that he was on. He impressed me from then. He came in on his UFC debut. He looked good there as well. This guy is a collegiate wrestler, so I know some people think that he's got the D1 or the D2. It's not that case. He is a collegiate wrestler, but he is also a national and state champion as well in wrestling. And to go along with that, he does have a background in freestyle wrestling. He does have a background in Greco-Roman wrestling as well. So this is a guy instantly that anybody that knows me knows that I love my wrestlers. This is a guy that I'm really really excited about. Now, he came into MMA. He said that he'd seen other wrestlers such as like TJ Dillashaw come in and be really successful, and honed his wrestling skills and built up his striking, and that's what he wanted to do, and that's why he came into MMA, and that's exactly what he has done. He's brought his wrestling over. He's looked good. He's looked exciting. Every fight he looks a little bit better at striking. His jiu-jitsu gets a little bit better as well, and I just think that he's becoming this complete fighter, and this complete fighter with a solid wrestling background is a really dangerous fighter inside the octagon. And uh, on the other hand, we've got Alejandro Perez. I'm just not impressed with that guy at all. That's a guy that somehow got a draw against Albert Morales. I've got legit no idea how that got scored a draw. Albert Morales should have won that. Even though, and in fact, no, Perez even had a point taken away from him as well. This is what doesn't make sense. He had a point taken away from him for punching him after the bell in between rounds, and it doesn't make any sense. But I'm not going to get into that. He drew against Albert Morales. That's on his record. Um, that's a guy that also had a controversial decision win over Andrei Sukumtar that we've now seen, isn't the fighter that he was made out to be. Really poor fight IQ. And in regards to Perez's style, I think he's really predictable. He mixes in leg kicks with his strikes. He really does like to throw leg kicks, but that's something I would normally worry about. But then when you go back to Lopez's last fight against Asuncao, the brutality of those leg kicks, if he can take them off Asuncao, he'll take them off anybody in that division without a shadow of a doubt. So that doesn't worry me. Then Perez, he likes to really wind up on his overhand rights. I think that Lopez has got a good strike and defense game. He slips well. He moves in and out. He angles well. He sees the shots coming. I think he'll see a wound up overhand right without a doubt. And then Perez likes to mix in takedowns as well. But I think that part of his game in this fight is going to be totally nullified, because if he even attempts a takedown on Lopez, we've seen his defensive wrestling. He quickly switches to a trip or a throw to get you onto the mat. We saw it against Mitch Gagnon, I think it was. He went in for a takedown, completely reversed it, mounted him instantly, started with the ground and pound. So I really don't think that Perez will have the game plan to get this fight to the mat. And if he does, I think that I'm going to enjoy that even more. As you can tell, my bet is on Matthew Lopez. I've got 2.5 units at, again, a crazy -124, I think it was. It's nuts. This line should be so much higher. The same as Tavares. They're just so, I hit these lines so low, I couldn't believe my own luck. I think that what's going to happen here with Lopez, I think he's going to stand up, he's going to strike for as long as he needs to before he closes the distance, before he takes him down. Perez also slows down as well as fights progress. So I think the longer that this fight goes on, the easier it'll be for Lopez. He'll get the takedowns, he'll get the ground and pound. There will be a chance of him getting a submission. I think Perez does have good scrambles to an extent, but he's never fought a wrestler as good or relentless as Matthew Lopez. So it'll be interesting to see actually how good his scrambles are. And just one last thing to mention about Perez: do not be fooled by his record. I think he's like 19-4 or 19-6. Do not be fooled by that. That's ridiculously padded. Go on to Sherdog, have a look at his level of competition outside the UFC. You'll see some like 4 for 9s and negative win to loss ratios. It's padded, man. Like it's not as good as it looks. I'm not impressed with him. I really like Matthew Lopez. I think he's fought much better competition as well. He's just been in there with Asun Sao. He's also been in there with Rani Yaya as well. Yes, Yaya beat him, but fucking Yaya is someone I am ridiculously high on. His grappling is easily one of the best in the UFC, and Lopez hung with him, and you know, he's fought great competition, and I don't think Perez has. And the competition that Perez has fought hasn't been great, and he's still not really looked that great in those positions either. So I'm really, really high on Lopez, and I'd be very, very surprised if he didn't get this win. I think he'll win a really comfortable decision on the scorecards. I believe you're picking him as well, MP. Don't know if it's a bet or not. So what's your thoughts, man?
Yeah, it's definitely a pass for me here. I didn't really research both of these guys. Just kind of quickly looked at their records and who they fought. I I don't like the loss that Perez has to Patrick Williams. I think Patrick Williams is pretty bad. I
Can
think
you
Luke
remember that
Sanders.
fight? I completely forgot about that when I was talking, man. Can you remember what happened with
Um, well, he got submitted within 23 seconds by a guillotine choke.
that?
So. I mean, if you look at, like you said, he's got a split decision win over Sukumta. I believe when I was watching it live, I didn't think he won. Morales, like you said, he definitely should have lost that fight. I have to rewatch his fight against Alcantara because I think Alcantara is pretty decent, but he is getting a little older, so he's 37 years old. So, but he hasn't lost. I mean, Perez hasn't lost since 2015. But I mean, some of those wins that he has are a bit iffy, and I think he might have a scheduled loss here. Honestly, Matthew Lopez is also fighting at home. He's from Arizona. I like seeing that. He definitely fought better competition. Yeah, he did lose to Austin Sao, but man, Austin Sao is a beast. So is Yahi. So I like your pick, man, but I'm definitely passing on the fight.
Yeah, it's in regards to the Alcantara fight. He did look okay against Alcantara, but I think the difference, what we're going to see here is, and this is what I hope as well. I think I'm going to see it, and I hope I'm going to see it. I think if Perez does come forward, I'm not sure he'll be the aggressor, but I think at any stage if he comes forward, Lopez is going to smash him with a takedown or even attempt it. And I think after that first attempt to take down or complete a takedown, Perez is going to be very apprehensive to overcommit to anything on the feet, which is going to completely send his game off balance. And again, that aids Matthew Lopez. But yeah, really confident in Lopez. 2.5 units on him at -124. So just before we move on to the quick fire picks, just to recap on my bets, I've got 2 units on Cortney Casey at -105. I've got 2.5 units on Brad Tavares at -128 and 2.5 units on Matthew Lopez at -124. So moving into the quickfire picks then, we touched upon it earlier with Carlos Condit and Alex Oliveira. Just to keep it really quick for me, I've got concerns with Alex Oliveira. I think he does get the win. The reason I can't bet it, especially at -200, is for two reasons. One, he's coming in on short notice. He's never looked like he's had totally the best gas tank anyway. So I do have concerns of what his gas tank's going to be like with just a 1 week turnaround. Um, and second of all, with the war, I know you touched upon this earlier, the war with Yancy Medeiros, I think that um, it might be too soon. Yancey's got that Hawaiian toughness about him. He's got that steel, that iron chin. Uh, so many people struggle to knock Yancey out. Yet Yancey went in there with a potentially declined Cowboy Oliveira, Cowboy Cerrone, Donald Cerrone, and got knocked out in 1 round. So to me, looking at that, I definitely think that Yancey's knockout was aided by um, by coming back too soon, and I do fear it could be the same with Oliveira. But having said that, Condit is pretty shot as well. I'd have liked around the -150 mark. I know I was never going to get that. It opened at -160. I would have took the chance on Oliveira at that, but there's too many red flags for me here. So I'm just happy to bet and happy to pass on the bet.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have to agree here. The other thing that I want to add, Alex Oliveira, he had a broken nose in that fight against Yancy Medeiros, and he took a bad beating, and it was only 4 months ago. I don't know how well he healed up, but I don't know if Carlos Condit can dish out the beatings anymore, so I don't blame anyone for taking a shot at Cowboy here, but I definitely have to pass unless it gets to that -175 to 160 range, then I might take a shot at him, but I don't really see that happening. So,
The
yeah.
other thing as well is I did see someone mention this on Twitter, and I do agree with it. If anybody is going to bring back the old Carlos Condit with the style of fighting, it is probably Oliveira. So it wouldn't surprise me if Oliveira was aggressive here, and it really brought a little bit of the old Condit back out. And like I said, it's question marks, it's red flags. Ultimately, I think it could be one of these fights where we're going to be watching it live and think, well, fuck yeah, we missed out on that opportunity, because I think Cowboy could potentially make it look that easy. Um, but that's all in hindsight. Before the fight, you've got to weigh things up, man. And for me, like I said, there's a few red flags, and I just can't bet it for that reason. Um, so moving on to the next quick fight, we've got Muslim Salikhov against Ricky Rainey. Ricky Rainey coming in on short notice. I don't really know too much about the guy. I know he's been a bit of a Bellator vet, been in there with some decent guys. I heard on the grapevine that he's been training with Wonderboy, which would make sense coming in against someone like Salikhov that has that wushu sander. I'm not saying Wonderboy's got wushu sander, but it's the flashy strikes and the flashy kicks. So I would imagine Wonderboy would be able to emulate Salikhov quite well. For that reason, I'm going to be picking Ricky Rainey. I also think that he could use takedowns against Salikhov. That's one of Salikhov's holes. I lost about 3.5 units against Salikhov in his last fight against Alex Garcia. Really, really bad bet. It was awful. Hated watching it. One of those that will probably stick with me. So I think that Ricky Rainey's got clear paths to victory, here, and I think he'll get the win. What about you?
Yeah, just looking at Ricky Rainey, and guess what? He lost to my boy Dhiego Lima. How about that? Uh, but yeah, I mean, honestly, don't have a great read on this one. I remember Muslim in his last fight. I was disappointed. I thought it would be another Dagestani beast, but he didn't really look like one. I mean, he does have those flashy kicks, but honestly don't have a great read. I mean, if I had to pick a guy, then I would pick Muslim Salikhov, but it's a clear pass.
Cool. Next, we've got Shana Dobson and Lauren Mueller. Ultimately, I'm going to go with Lauren here. Shana Dobson got absolutely ran through in the TUF series round one against Roxanne Modafferi, somebody that Lauren's beaten, I believe. So again, I know it's MMA math and it doesn't always add up. Most of the time it doesn't, but I've not watched tape on it. I've got absolutely no interest in betting it. So MMA math is pretty much all I've got to go off at the minute. I don't think Dobson is that great from what I've seen. So yeah, my pick's gonna be Muller by decision. What about you?
Yeah, man, I haven't seen either of those two girls fight, so honestly, it was very, very easy to pass. And yeah, I mean, it's even hard for me to pick a winner here because I have a limited knowledge. But if I had to pick one, I'll pick Lauren.
I was gonna say, man, there's no sitting on the fence on the Newsome MMA betting podcast, unfortunately.
Oh no, I pick, man. I always pick.
Next, we've got Arjan Bula against Adam Weisharek. I'd really love to bet Bula in this spot, but he's just too much juice for me. It opened at -150 for you guys, not for me in the UK. Opened for me in the UK -300. I ain't gonna play that, especially on the heavyweight. Adam Weisharek though is a bit of a jobber. Arjan Bula, I think, is someone that can climb the rankings. Decent boxing, great wrestler. And I think that he'll get the decision win here. What about you?
Yeah, I'm leaning Buller's way. Um, I did actually take him. I have to watch a little more tape before I confirm if I want to put it on Bet MMA, but I did get 1.5 units on him at -280. Um, you know, I think he is a rising prospect, and I think he's going to be able to get it done. But like I said, I have to do a little more research on this matchup. So this matchup and the Dhiego Lima one are the ones that I'm going to be researching in the next few days for confirmation.
Cool, man. And then the final quick fire pick, we've got Luke Sanders versus Patrick Williams. And, I was quite. I, I'm picking Luke Sanders to win. It's a total fade on Patrick Williams. I don't think he's a great fighter. He's got 2.5 minutes of gas in that tank before he starts to really start blowing. And Luke Sanders, he's got that pressure, man. He'll constantly be putting it on him. The one type of fighter Patrick Williams won't want to be fighting in the octagon is the type of fighter Luke Sanders is. But having said that, Luke Sanders is like what, minus 450, minus 500. Fuck that, no way. Um, I'm picking Luke Sanders to win. I think he'll stop him. I think it might be an accumulation of strikes that drop him and the ref saves him, similar to the Tom Duquesnoy knockout of Patrick Williams. So yeah, I've got Luke Sanders, but absolutely no way I'm paying that juice. What about you?
Yeah, I feel the same way. Luke Sanders. I do. I am picking him, but man, I can't bet that high of juice on the guy who lost to Soccer Mom by TKO. I mean, there's no way I can. I mean, he's fighting at home. He lost two in a row. I mean, he's definitely going to be super motivated. He's not a complete jobber. He has some good wins here and there, but I mean, he did actually beat Dan Moret. Fun fact. But yeah, I mean, if I had to pick a guy, it would be him. But no way I can pay that high juice. And Patrick Williams, I don't really think much of him, and I think he might be actually getting cut here soon if he loses. He's 36 years old, and yeah, never been impressed.
Cool. Well, that's all she wrote, man. So just a quick one from me. Any bets that you might have missed on here or anything you want to look back on, but you might not have enough time, you just want to have a quick read. I've got brief written breakdowns of all my bets on my website, which is newsomemma.co.uk/bet hyphen picks. But have a look around that site. Any MMA fans going to enjoy all of the content on there. It's got a little bit of something for everybody. It's not just my podcasts are on there. It's other good guys, other sharp betters podcast and prediction videos as well. We've got featured articles coming from all over. We've got content coming from the local and regional scenes with heavy duty fight management on there as well. Give me a follow on Twitter. It's at Newsome_MMA. All my MMA talk is on there from a day-to-day basis, whether it just be opinions or replying to people or just replying to tweets and just getting involved. Always happy to have a chat with anybody over there. Go back and forth on any fights. Really enjoy that as well. It's always good to hear other people's opinions and have an open mind to what other people think as well. Is there anything you want to plug, NP?
No, man, it was a pleasure, breaking down fights with you. Like I said, this is my first time, so hopefully people won't be muting my parts and they're actually gonna listen. But yeah, it was fun, man. I'm in the future. I'm hoping to start my own podcast with probably my boy MMA Vegas Pete. So yeah, but this was a first experience. It was pretty great. Yeah, it was an honor.
Awesome, yeah, and thanks a lot for taking the time to come on as well. I do appreciate it. It's always nice to have a partner in crime on these podcasts. So that's all for this week, folks. So we'll see you back next week, which I believe is Atlantic City.
Yep, yep.